What's a stereotype about a certain mental illness that's not accurate? Schizophrenics don't always hear voices. With mine, I hear people trying to break down my door, trying to open my windows, and movement under my house. Schizophrenia often involves extreme paranoia rather than evil voices. My biopsych professor told us how her Bill, if off of his medication, believed that if he left the house for any reason someone would break in after he left to unplug the fridge and spoil all the food. That depression only makes you sad. There is a myriad of other feelings and physical symptoms. One of my first symptoms of depression is being extremely irritable. Also, when my depression was at its worst, I wasn't sad. I was numb. I remember guessing facial expressions to match what emotions I was supposed to respond with in a conversation. For me, there wasn't even sadness. Just dense numbness and apathy, and then paralyzing fear towards obligations and responsibilities. I also had a lot of difficulty breathing and swallowing, which caused panic attacks. All of this went on for years before I realized what it was and that it was all connected. Depression is definitely not what people tend to think it is. The most painful part of depression, at least to me, is that I wasn't entirely apathetic. I wanted things, but not badly enough to overcome all of the other mental roadblocks of the condition. And that feeling of failure was just so painful. In my worst moments of my 8-year breakdown, I gave into my depression completely. Gave up on life entirely, and it was like curling up inside the warmest, coziest blanket on a freezing night. Just letting go of all of my emotion towards everything and no longer feeling pain by virtue of no longer feeling anything. My depression usually manifests in me sleeping excessively and being unable to complete household tasks. The state of my home leads to further depression. Today was the first time in a while that I've been able to work on it for a decent chunk of time. One of the regulars at my local bar is dealing with PTSD right now. He's not military or a first responder. He's a line technician for a telecom company. But he got sent out into the fires that ravaged Oregon this summer to repair phone and internet lines for the fire crews. And he ended up seeing some pretty gnarly shit. Fields full of dead cattle. Homes burned down. Huge swathes of the beautiful Oregon countryside destroyed. He has all the classic symptoms. Sleeplessness. Horrible nightmares. Anger issues. Anxiety. Depression. Bad reactions to images of fire or the after effects of fire. His company isn't doing shit for him. I've directed him to counseling groups that deal with this kind of trauma, but he can't afford them. It sucks. PTSD is real and can restrict you in ways you don't even notice. One thing that helps me get through the day is propranolol. A good psychiatrist and a solid diagnosis is well worth the time, effort, and self-advocacy, and the last one is the most difficult. I'm 16 and I've been recognizing signs of PTSD for about a year now, and I already have depression and anxiety from trauma from living with my parents, which actually hasn't stopped yet, and I'm still constantly living in a hell. I've been to a hospital after a suicide attempt and I'm slowly slipping away from reality. I come closer to death every day. It's inevitable, and soon I don't think I can make it 2 more years to move out, and because of COVID, even if I survive, I might not be able to move and my life is just in pieces. OCD is not about being tidy and clean. It involves rescuing intrusive thoughts, and obsessively cleaning is just one of OCD related compilations. It can seriously FCK up someone's life. An example would be turning a light switch on and off 30 times once entering a room, or you fear something terrible will happen if you don't. It really annoys me when someone calls themselves OCD because they like a clean kitchen. 100% agree. I was diagnosed with OCD in 1997, and I have to admit that the diagnosis floored me. I assumed, like most people back then, that it was just a severe cleaning habit because that was how it was portrayed in documentaries I'd seen. My personal experience of OCD has nothing whatsoever to do with cleaning. Although I love doing it. I have a picture on my wall that is never straight, and it does not bother me in the slightest. Drives me insane when people claim they are OCD because they are fussy cleaners. If only they knew about the intrusive thoughts and overthinking that goes with it. That eating disorders are a vanity thing. I watched two friends go through eating disorders and it was definitely never about vanity. If anything, it was about being able to control something when external factors made their lives chaotic or they experienced a traumatic event. It's certainly a very serious illness. My brother has Tourette's and I came here to say exactly that. His tics usually manifest as various physical twitches. Also, most people don't know it often gets much more severe with stress. That's one of the rarer tics. My roommate's daughter has what we think is Tourette's. Hasn't been manifesting long enough to have a full diagnosis. She jerks her head a bit and says kitten. Kitten when a cat walks into the room. Being autistic doesn't mean that we are stupid or of low intelligence. It just means we see the world differently. No. We will not see a kid that hung himself in the bathroom and think it's a piata. No, we don't exclusively scream into our mic when we play video games. No, we are not obsessively clean. No, we don't lack sympathy, though empathy can sometimes be tough for us. No, we don't all need someone to watch and bathe and feed us. Every time I see an autistic meme, it makes my blood boil. And media representation is even worse. The only thing it's doing is setting false expectations for what an autistic person will be like. We are not all geniuses. We just sometimes latch onto certain subjects because we really like them. Sometimes it seems like the only thing in the world that makes sense. Autistic people can also lie. I don't know where the idea that they couldn't lie came from. Couldn't have put it better myself. Fact is, it's a spectrum for a reason. There's such a wide range of intensities and types when it comes to emotional response and regulation, social interaction, picking up on cues, fixation, etc. For example, I'm not too emotional, but can get excitable and loud. I have empathy, but occasionally overstep socially and expect too much too soon. On an average day you wouldn't know I'm autistic. It's such a varied, complex thing, and media representation tends to be hugely problematic. Mood anxiety disorders do not need an objective reason for occurring. You don't need to have a shitty life to be depressed or to be in at any actual risk of something bad happening in order to have anxiety. They can just happen randomly or in connection to things that happened far in the past. Therefore, the common notions that someone is ungrateful for being depressed or having anxiety, or that they're faking it because they have no reason to suffer from them, is absolutely flawed in the attempt at fixing them by pointing out the good things in somebody's life is futile and antagonizing. Don't see OCD yet. It's not liking your pens in color coordinated order, it's feeling like if this contaminated pen touches that one, your sister will die. If you don't hit the light switch an odd even number of times, you'll die. The rituals can literally take over your life. And you know they don't make sense. But you can't stop. Can also be obsessing over if the Lysol you use to clean your bathroom will make you sick, or if you cut your fingers off if you use a knife. It's the most random shit sometimes. That autism is a condition exclusive to boys. The truth is, autistic women and girls are extremely underdiagnosed because they learn to camouflage their symptoms early in life. Plus general bias. Statistically speaking, if an autistic boy and an autistic girl show the exact same signs and traits of autism, the girl will be diagnosed later due to just being overlooked and dismissed. Anorexic people aren't all skinny teenage white girls. I'm an average weight adult man, and it drives me crazy how hard it is to find support in the professional world because I'm not thin enough. I work in mental health and we run an eating disorders course. In the creation of that, I had to consult with an ED therapist in Sutton, UK, who admitted to me that a patient being assessed has to tick certain number of boxes and be X number underweight for them to get treatment. They are not funded for prevention, instead only step in when it's crisis level. Should be more out there for prevention. Pretty much everything about ADHD. No. We don't need to just try harder. No. We're not lazy. No. We don't need, yuck, discipline. It's not made up. There are different types of ADHD and our meds help us cope in an empty world. They're not cheating. Edit. No, you can't have any of our meds. We need that shit to function. Climbs down off soapbox. That everyone is a little bipolar. FCK off, you were sad and happy in the same day. Also that there's nothing wrong with us, we just need to get hobbies. Drink water and exercise. I was refused help for my bipolar because no one believed me. I'm also severely depressed. Major depression. And have severe anxiety, so that was what got me into the doctor to be diagnosed. People with anxiety being highly strung or nervous about things. It can manifest itself in that way. But it's more like there's always something at the back of your mind that needs doing. But you're not sure what. Even if you know what that thing is. You can see the end goal. And maybe even the steps to getting to that goal. But staying on that path requires you to fight with self-doubt. And the what ifs that plague your mind when you're on the way there. Also, you can appear quite well adjusted in social situations. But in downtime, overthink every f-king thing. I have panic disorder. But as an adult, my panic attacks have occurred almost exclusively when I'm driving on the highway. When I tell people about it, they assume I'm scared of driving on the highway. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. I have irrational thoughts about having a panic attack and not being able to get off the highway and crashing the car or whatever. But I actually love driving. It absolutely pains me that I have these panic attacks doing something I love. I've never had a particular experience that makes me panic while driving. It's just panic sparking panic, and it's this cycle that I'm able to deal with better at some times than others. I also think a lot of people think they have had a panic attack, but really they've just felt anxious or nervous. It's hard to explain the full physiological mental feeling to someone who hasn't experienced it. That people with schizophrenia are all dangerous and violent. In reality, people with mental illness, including schizophrenia, are far more likely to be victims of violent crime rather than perpetrators of it. I shut people down so much on this damn site for this shit. A couple years ago, a man pushed a random stranger in front of the train and killed him. Everyone is like, he was mentally ill. Was he? I pointed out that the article you linked had to mention of mental illness. Rather he does or doesn't. You can't assume. People need to realize that sometimes people are assholes and can do terrible things. Maybe it makes them feel better. But it doesn't help us who are mentally ill. People think that borderline personality disorder makes people evil and there's nothing to be done about it. The actuality is there is an entire type of therapy designed for BPD that is really effective in managing symptoms. People with BPD aren't monsters. Agreed. I always bring it up with my DBT therapist. I don't blow up. I don't manipulate people, and I'm overall pretty quiet. That's when the observation of my high alert and childhood trauma is brought to the forefront and PTSD comes up. Good times. S. People W bipolar switching moods on the dot. This. Exactly. I can spend days or weeks in one mood set. And I'm not always low or high. It's a common misconception. Emo. That bipolar people are either crazy manic or mopey depressed. There are plenty of days where I'm symptomless and I function as if I'm not bipolar. Then again, I can be triggered into a different mood depending on how things are going. I've been at the bottom of the barrel depressed and someone did or said something, and then it's the most exhilarating rush of happiness. You can tell if a person is depressed by looking at them. No. You can't. Depression doesn't have a face. Depression is laughing at a joke someone made. Smiling on the outside and pretending everything is fine. Depression isn't always being down and sad. I've suffered depression most of my life. I still go to work every single day with a smile on my face, acting happy and cheery when all I want to do is hide in the corner and die. On the outside, nothing is wrong. On the inside, there's a f-king war zone with debris and shrapnel flying everywhere with nowhere to hide. That crazy people don't know they're crazy. I've been told this by doctors. In slightly different terms. Psychotic people can't tell they're psychotic. That said, I can definitely tell that something is very wrong when I'm psychotic. Even if I can't figure out that my thoughts don't match reality. Psychopaths are not like Hannibal. Even that smell sense is inaccurate. Yeah. People tend to think sociopaths are either evil CEOs or intellectual serial killers. But the truth is that the majority just don't feel emotions very strong or at all. No intelligence or malice needed. Asperger's syndrome doesn't mean I'm gonna be a school shooter or that I'm good at math. I have Asperger's. And let me tell you, I will seem normal in most subjects. But watching me do math might kill some of your brain cells. 1. Having a good day and hearing I thought you were depressed. 2. How debilitating anxiety can actually be. It's not just feeling uneasy about being social. Sometimes, when I'm going to a place I've never been, or seeing someone for the first time in a while, first time ever, or I've got a significant event like first day back in education, I get an overwhelming urge to throw up. There were a few months in high school where my regular morning routine was wake up, eat breakfast, put my hand on the front door, run to the bathroom and throw up my breakfast, walk out my front door. I might not have thrown up if I'd just walked out and gone to school. But I was so terrified of rolling those dice and getting a bad result that I just mentally pushed that strong, nauseating urge over the edge to get it out of the way. 3. Autism doesn't mean I have dulled or no emotions. My emotions are quite strong. And I've had to learn to limit how much of them I express at once for the sake of those around me. Mental illness does not make you particularly dangerous or a genius. ADHD isn't being fidgety and uncontrollable. ADHD is staring at an assignment for hours and never processing what it means. ADHD is overthinking and going into manic episodes every time you receive criticism for the assignments you couldn't complete because of, you guessed it, your disorder. ADHD is having a million things running through your head and you keep thinking ahead to what you want to say next. To the point where you can't even form a coherent sentence because you get your words mixed up. ADHD isn't a quirky, funny thing. It's hell. And I'd give anything to not have it. I am here to say depression is not an emotional problem, it's a chemical problem. Depression can be caused by either emotional problems or because of chemical imbalances. Things like emotional trauma can lead to a normal person developing it even if they don't have the gene. It all depends. Really. That people with borderline personality disorder are crazy drama queens that only care about themselves. There are different kinds of BPD. Some of us are introverted and instead of taking up space we give it all away. We're all miserable but not always toxic. That if you have a certain mental illness, no one can ever have different or more severe symptoms than you have. I'm on a lot of crime subreddits and it makes me crazy when there's an article about someone with bipolar or something and someone replies that there's no way it had anything to do with them committing the crime because they themselves have, insert mental illness, and have never committed that crime. We know it's not the case with other diseases. Some people recover from cancer. Some people don't. Some people struggle terribly from diabetes and some people manage it very well and have no real setbacks. But when it comes to mental illness we have this weird mental block. I don't have any mental illness. But I think that many of them are taken less seriously than they are. Especially on the internet. People have come to equate any kind of nervousness with anxiety. Feeling sad with being depressed. Being tidy with having OCD. Etc. I'm sure that some of the people who use these terms have gone through some of these mental illnesses. But I think that oftentimes the reason many people misunderstand them is because they're treated the same way as everyday feelings. Dyslexic pepile, like myself, being lazy or not bothering to learn how to do things, and I hate it that once in a while you will get something right and then everyone will say after, well, you can do it or not trying hard enough. Yeah, I hate when that happens. My ex was mildly dyslexic and I'm a writer. And it was an inside joke between us. But only with his permission. I used to have to read menus and stuff if they were in script and whatnot. Once, we were at a restaurant that had a fancy script for their menu items. And the table next to us started making fun of us. My ex wasn't super conscious of his dyslexia. But he started getting pissed. It was the only time in the 2 years we were together that he 1. Called for a manager at a place and 2. Made a scene at a restaurant. Nothing happened. But I'm sure those people were super ashamed when my ex loudly proclaimed he was uncomfortable because his disability was being made fun of. Every other table in the place was staring. Those people left as soon as they finished eating in complete silence. That you're a pussy, attention seeker, faker, snowflake, etc. If you seek help or even just want to vent to someone. This stigma prevents many people from receiving the help they need and causes even more distress. It makes my blood boil that this is acceptable. Alzheimer's is not just slowly and passively forgetting things. There is a middle part where the brain realizes something is up and acts up on its own outside the poor sufferer's control. This manifests itself often as extreme anger, self-harm, and other loss of control. It's as if one side of the brain is desperately trying to break out while the other has no idea what is going on. It's called sundowning. That self-harming is done to just get attention. What a lot of shit. Those who have self-harmed like me will hide their cuts and scars. My thoughts are, though, that some people do self-harm just for attention. But that's a problem as it is. If someone has to go as far as to physically harm themselves, that's a sign of a big problem. Some people do it for attention and some people don't. Both are serious. That compulsive hoarding can't be fixed by just cleaning the house and throwing everything away. And that it's more like a symptom of anxiety. As in, I tried to clean X, but it didn't turn out perfectly, so there's no point in cleaning at all. Sort of thing. I'm not good with words. Source. Have hoarding tendencies myself. Kept in check by family and willpower. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. This is just the conclusions I came to while watching hoarders. Major depressive disorder. I've had to know this disease. As a physician. And also as a patient. What's the worst part? Leaving aside the symptoms? People. Not healthcare professionals. Nor even MDD patients. Telling you what is depression, mood and disorder aren't the same. Or telling you what to do, it's all in your head. Do your part. Etc. Like. Bingo. I'm gonna happier from now on. Cause waking up some mornings tired and wanting to do nothing. Bad sleep. Irritability. Mood changes. Low libido. Etc. Oh yeah. Because I don't do my part. And I am doing this voluntarily. And traveling around the world is as shitty as any other piece of advice. Addicts are lazy. Selfish. Don't care about anyone but themselves. And choose to drink and use. I didn't know when I was 17 that experimenting with drugs would destroy my life. I never thought. I can't wait to do shameful things to keep from withdrawal. Hurt the people I love the most. And sabotage everything good in my life. Certainly an illness that needs treatment.